Hello everyone, how are you doing here today? Today I'm here with Mr. Chillingworth, who is a pharmacist. Mr. Chillingworth, how are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing good too. Uh, yeah, I guess let's get straight into it. How did you initially how did you initially get into this line of work?
I was in high school and I was thinking about careers in science or medicine. I wanted to help people. But I quickly realized I wasn't going to be a good nurse or doctor because I don't want to touch people's fluids, right? So I went for a pharmacy degree. I explored that option
Hmm.
where I could still help them, but not have to touch them.
Right.
So I give a mean flu shot, but I don't want to take anything out of you. So I can teach you about your medicine and make sure that your drugs don't interact. And it seemed like a perfect choice.
Mhm.
And 26 years later, after graduation, I'm still super excited I picked it. So I'm very lucky.
Yeah. What are some interests? What are some interests would lead you to become a pharmacist? Like, what are some interests, like key interests?
Um, Service. I wanted to provide a service to other humans.
Hmm.
Um, I was a science lover. Like I took physics as an elective just for fun because
Right.
I love it. I love being able to explain what happens in nature. I actually thought about going for environmental engineering because I'm also sort of a tree hugger, but I decided pharmacy was a little more predictable and that helping people aspect, I think I really achieved more of that. But I didn't love math. I was fine at it. I didn't love it, but I loved science. So I
Right.
think that drove me
Right.
to it.
So, would you say a love in science, along with a love in science, what other aspects or skills would a person need to really be successful in this field?
Well, you have to have empathy for other people to the best of your ability. I mean, as I got older and older and older in my career, I had more and more and more personal experiences, which allowed me to better relate to pharmacy patients. I mean,
Hmm.
you don't know a whole lot about life at 24 when you first graduate, but now that I'm 49, I've experienced so much more. So you continue to gain experiences that allow you to give empathy to other people, and you have to be a good listener.
Hmm.
You have two ears and one mouth for a reason, right? You got to be a good listener.
Right.
Um, I needed to be a lifelong learner because new medicines come out all the time and new research is done all the time. I read a ton every day, like, and I still can't keep up.
Hmm.
So you have to want to keep learning. It's not you graduate and you're done. It's so not like that. You have to get recertified every couple of years and do continuing education credits.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. It pays well, but if you go into it for the money, you're not going to get fulfilled. So you really have to have the other parts to make it enjoyable,
Right.
I
Right.
think.
Because like obviously you
Yeah.
can't just do anything just for the money. You have to have like some love for it so that you can actually get through the day.
Yeah, kids don't believe that a lot of times because they're like, "Man, if I can make a bunch of money, then I'll be happy." But it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that. Take it from your elder. Um, I mean, it's still work, right? Like you still have to go to work and it's not always super fun.
Hmm.
But if you remember why you're doing it, it makes it so, you can kind of overcome those hard days.
Right, right. And like you said like before like how there's like different medicines and like different things that are coming out. So how much would you say that you would have to like study, restudy like every month, suppose like in hours or days?
I probably read at least an hour a day, at least an hour a day.
Oh.
Sometimes more. It depends how much free time I have. Um, I have a package of like journals over here to the right of my desk that they're there, and I can't seem to get to them because I keep reading my newsletters
Right.
and FDA updates and all that stuff that comes through my email. So
Hmm.
I read at least an hour a day, and I still can't get through it all.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot. Like again, I said you have to like keep on self-learning throughout life, right?
But I like it. I like what I'm learning about, and I
Hmm.
think that's probably one of my key messages to you and your classmates that you have to just look within yourself and figure out like, what do you like? some rainy day when you're super comfy in your bed, what do you like so much that you want to get up and do it? And that's going to be your career choice. That's going to be the thing, like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. If you can figure that out as a teenager, it's a gift. A lot of people don't figure it out till their 20s,
Right.
sometimes later. But just listen to yourself and be really honest with yourself
Mm-hmm.
and talk to your teachers and talk to your parents and say, I like photography, I like business, and I like medicine. What can I do with all those things? And sometimes you have to get creative to be able to find a thing that kind of meets all of
Right.
your likes.
Right.
Hmm.
So you had mentioned before like how a person being a pharmacist needs to have empathy to be able to communicate with other people. And
Yep.
so would you say that your schooling has helped you develop empathy and communication skills, or was it something that you had to develop when you were actually on job?
Yeah, school didn't teach me that. My parents taught me that. And so, like, when I interview people to work for me,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of look for, I mean, I have to look for stuff that school taught them, but I look a lot for what your family taught you.
Right.
Like, are you kind? Are you thoughtful? Are you a good problem solver? Are you funny? Do you smile or do you look like grumpy face, right?
Right.
Like, um, and sometimes I have to break the ice and I'm like, well, what kind of music do you listen to? And then you talk about, they open up a little bit.
Mm.
So like when I interview people, I look for those kind of things. But I think probably the biggest thing that I learned when I was behind the counter was that I couldn't take people personally. Like
Mm.
everybody I see in a day is sick.
Right.
They're grumpy. They're not psyched. They don't want to be there. Generally speaking, they really would much rather be somewhere else. So
Mm-hmm.
I had to learn not to take that personally and kind of project positivity so that I would get more positivity back. Because if you reflect what the patients are giving you, it's really going to be a long life. so,
Right.
so I learned how to kind of turn that around, and it made them feel better. Like, I know you don't want to be here, but hi, how can I help you? Right?
Right.
Instead
Right.
of letting them drive the mood. So empathy and kind of putting off positivity even when they don't want to see your
It
face.
really helps.
It's challenging,
Right.
but you get better at it.
Yeah. So how would you
Hmm.
say a normal day minus coronavirus is for a pharmacist?
So in the community pharmacy, it really, I would say the main coronavirus change is really just the masks and the goggles. But the day really is the same. In a community pharmacy, it's very process driven. And the reason that there's a process is so that you don't make a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Processes can be very, very good for error prevention.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in any career in IT, right?
Right.
Your dad, he'll write a business plan and he has to think and go through all of these steps before he can formulate a plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and in pharmacy, you take the prescription in, the piece of paper from the patient, and you
Mm-hmm.
have to go through all these steps in a row
Right. Right.
to make sure that all of the check boxes are checked, the I's are
Oh,
dotted and the T's are crossed. Um, the process gets interrupted by phone calls from doctors, by somebody who walks in and wants a flu shot, um, people asking questions, for what they can buy over the counter. So you always just have to kind of revert to the process.
all right. Right.
Um,
And like,
yeah.
so how would you say the process is for like suppose somebody coming in and they have the flu, like and they have like of course like the prescriptions for Tylenol and whatnot. So like how long does that
Yep.
normally take?
It depends how busy we are.
Uh-huh.
Um, so while there is a process,
Mm-hmm.
part of that process is prioritizing very sick people and babies.
Right.
Okay, so if I know somebody's waiting in the store and they're very sick, they move to the front of the line. If I know that somebody is going to come back in 2 hours, they go behind. And so like the urgent one might have a red basket with all the paperwork and the insurance cards in it, and the other one might be a blue basket.
Right.
And that's kind of the order we go in. Depending on how busy it is, it could take 5 minutes or it could take 20 minutes.
Uh-huh.
If I have to make it, like make a compound,
Yeah.
that might take a couple hours,
Uh-huh.
but so it just kind of depends. But we don't want sick people in our store.
Right.
We don't want anybody throwing up on the floor, right? That's horrible. We don't want somebody to
Right.
we don't want a screaming baby. And we understand our job is to really help the sickest,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how that would work.
Yeah. Oh, I was kind of intrigued when you said that you make compounds. 'Cause I didn't know that specifically. So like, when would you normally like make a compound per se? Because like you said that you were obviously dispensing medicine to the whoever's coming by. So when would you make a compound for them?
You pray for a break. You just pray for a break in the action. Um, and there are pharmacy technicians that help the pharmacist as assistants, and depending on the state law, they can help in various capacities, like to different levels of help. Like they can go get the ingredients off the shelf, alcohol down the counter, set the equipment out, and get it all ready for the pharmacist to walk over there. So I don't have to go around and collect all the stuff,
Right.
which is very helpful. They kind of do like the prep work, like a sous chef, like they chop the onions and
Right.
they, they do it so that I can cook the omelet when I get to
Main course.
the station. Some are easier and some are harder. There are some mouthwashes for patients that have sores in their mouth, maybe from chemotherapy or a virus. And it's just a mixture of 60 milliliters of 3 different ingredients. So you just pour and shake. Easy. I mean, I could do that while somebody waits. But if I have to make a capsule, it takes forever. So I'm going to need you to come back tomorrow.
All right.
And might have to stay after close to do it, by the way. Done that plenty. Fortunately, that's not very prevalent. Usually it's topical stuff, like a couple of creams mixed together, or some capsules emptied out in a base like Aquaphor.
Right.
And that might just take me a few hours to work in between patients.
Right.
So we try to move as fast as we can. You burn a lot of calories in community pharmacy because you're always walking back and forth.
Right. Right.
So that's good for fitness purposes.
Yeah. Yeah. How would you say the life of like a person that's like that's new into community pharmacy versus like an experienced person like you who's been here for like 15 or 20 years?
Yeah, well, at first it's a little overwhelming because even though you've practiced,
Mm-hmm.
the first time you're left alone in the pharmacy, like as the pharmacist in charge, it's a little bit terrifying.
Right.
So you got to earn your stripes. You got to go with your training and learn. Obviously becomes easier as you go. I left the community pharmacy practice to work at a claims processing firm, and then to work with your dad at the renal pharmacy,
Mm-hmm.
to develop clinical programs. And now I lead a sales team to sell a service that helps to process pharmacy claims. So
Right.
pharmacy, it was I had very hands-on community
Job.
patient-facing job,
Mm-hmm.
and it was able to open doors for me that I could get different kinds of jobs. And now I work from home. Even when I had a fancy desk job, though, I still, for about 10 years, I worked part-time in a retail pharmacy because I like old people and I wanted to help someone. So I often had 2 or 3 jobs at a time.
Right. Right. And that seems like
Hmm.
a lot of like pressure and a lot of hours to put into your work. Am I right?
Yeah,
And
yeah, it can be.
how would you say that affects the work-life balance aspect of life? Yeah.
Well, I was a workaholic there for some years. So that was my fault. Like, if I was just a pharmacist,
Mm-hmm.
like with one job,
Right.
it's great balance because you can't take it home with you. You can't take the computer and all the drugs home and keep working. Working from home, there are times when I don't have balance because I don't leave my computer till dark 30.
Mm-hmm.
But then I can get my laundry done in between meetings.
Right.
So you just have to find balance. And if you love what you're doing, I don't know, it's not bad. Having kids forces you to find balance because
Right.
they're like, mom, 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 mom. And so you want to go to their sporting events. And I used to coach soccer, right? Like, so you just find it. You just get in a groove. And as long as it brings you joy, then you have balance, you
Right.
know?
Right. And
Yeah.
that's always good to have that. And now, as you said before, it's like pretty financially rewarding to well be in this field, like even as like a fresh person, right?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
would you say that pharmacy pays more than suppose other professions in the medical field?
Oh gosh, it depends, right? So like if you're a radiology tech or a pharmacy tech or a medical tech or a CNA, which is a certified nursing assistant, those are
Mm-hmm.
kind of like more entry level positions where you're just starting to learn.
Right. Right.
Um, but it's only a couple years of school. It's kind of like, it's hard to say. Based on the level of responsibility that you have for that patient's well-being, you kind of get paid accordingly. Like the pharmacist is ultimately in charge for the medicine that the person puts in their body.
Right.
So I'm going to make more money
Right.
than the technician who's helping me get to the point where I'm ultimately responsible.
Right.
There are primary care doctors
Mm-hmm.
who make what a pharmacist makes. So I don't want to touch people. Primary care doctor does want to touch people and have an office and do that kind of thing. Like, so that can be comparable. And then to specialize further,
Mm-hmm.
like to be a doctor but be a surgeon and then but be a neurosurgeon and
Right.
then be a pediatric neurosurgeon, right? Like depending on your level of personal risk,
Mm-hmm.
pay goes up.
Right.
Um, and everybody's different. Like some people are just born to be helpers
Right.
and it's a gift and it's beautiful and they do great in a technician or an assistant role. And then some people are born to be neurosurgeons and I wasn't one of those people. So I'm glad I found pharmacy because it's really a nice, I can speak the language and help my family.
Right.
When there's a health
Mm-hmm.
crazy thing happening, I'm
Right.
like, okay, don't worry, that's a big word, but all it means is you have low blood sugar, right? Like it's just the knowledge is helpful at home and at work. So it's really been good to me. And you
Right.
can work part-time and still make a really good living if you want to be like more of a parent at home,
Mm-hmm.
stay at home dad, stay at home mom, and just work part-time. You can still make a bunch of money and help people. So
Right.
again, you find your balance, right?
Right. And that's always good to like have a balance because then you can like divert time into this, that, and then you can just be happy. That's really what it comes
Life's
down
short, man.
to. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You got to have fun every day. Have a little fun.
It's a little bit, like 1 hour, 2 hours. Just
Yeah,
yeah. So you work for the company RX Benefits, am I right? So
that's right.
is there any internship or volunteering opportunities for high school students?
Some, yes, you'd have to live in Birmingham, Alabama,
Mhm.
but I know they just posted for like a mailroom intern, so you could go around and kind of meet the different departments and learn about the business. That's what that means. And then I know there are some pharmacy interns that sit with the clinical team in Birmingham. There's nothing really remote,
Mhm.
but at headquarters, and especially like once the office reopens, it's not really open right now,
Right.
except unless you're like the IT guy who has to fix everybody's computer
Uh,
systems and at the mainframe. Like only a few people are in the office right now.
right.
But in normal times, there would be down there.
Right. Right. And
Yeah.
how would you say like a high school student can get really involved in your work currently, virtually or going outside?
With the company or with the career choice?
With the career choice.
Um, well, it's always work with your adults because we all have friends that do all kinds of different jobs that would be more than willing to let you shadow
Right.
for a day. Um, if someone wanted to come and sit here with me at my house, like if you wanted to come over, because I know your dad, right? Like if you wanted to come over and
Right.
see what I do all day, we could totally hang out
All right.
and I would show you. If I worked in the pharmacy, it'd be a little tricky because there are certain laws that you got to be licensed in a certain way
Uh,
to be in the pharmacy.
right. Right.
Um, But depending on the workplace, usually people like me love to show kids like you what's out there because you can't aim for what you can't see.
Right.
So you have to be able to have a vision, like you got to be able to feel it, right? Like see it, feel it, do it, be there. And you're like, oh, this is okay. Or I don't want to do this at all. Like, maybe you shadow a veterinarian for a day and you're like, this is dirty. I don't like this.
Right.
Or this makes me feel like my heart is so full. Like I want to
Right.
do this for a job. Um, so I would say that's probably the best way is just talk to your adults and see who they have in their life that would be willing to
Really help you.
hang out with you and show you some stuff.
Right, right. And finally, how could you say like some courses that high school students can take to really like gain more knowledge if they don't have a family member or a friend that's a pharmacist? So like can it take AP
Right.
Bio or you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, chemistry, I think when I talked to you last time, I took 8 semesters of chemistry in college.
That's a
So
lot.
you better like it. so, so take sciences, take chemistry, take pre-calculus, take calculus if you can.
Right.
Um, um, I took a speed reading class
Mm-hmm.
actually in high school, which seems completely weird and unrelated, but there's so much reading that you have to do at the college level that helped me. And it even helps me now when I'm reviewing contracts.
Mm-hmm.
I can just read it really, really fast. So that was handy.
Mm-hmm.
You got to know how to write. You got to know how to write. You got to know your grammar.
Right.
No one's going to look at your resume if you spell words wrong either. So be a speller. Take some chemistry. AP chemistry is great. AP bio is great. Psychology is not a bad class to take because when you're trying to deliver a message to a patient, you got to meet them where they are,
Right.
right? Like it's a really old person. You're going to have to speak to them differently than if you're speaking to a 30-year-old or someone who's trained in the medical field.
Mm-hmm.
If you speak a different language than the patient, or if, culturally you're different and you have to kind of traverse that barrier.
Right. Right.
Any psychology class will help you in healthcare if you're interested in healthcare. And I wish I would have done it. I actually thought about going back to get a bachelor's in psych
Mm-hmm.
to be able to communicate with patients better and to understand like what they were thinking and where they were coming from.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right. And those are like important skills to have, like as you said, to like communicate and like really help people in that
mhm.
industry. And
Yeah, because you want them to leave with information,
right.
right, that they understand. Because some patients are on so much medicine, they just don't even know what it does. So you might have to write it down for them.
Mm-hmm.
You might have to draw it for them. Um, you might have to speak a little Spanish for them.
Right.
So I think I maybe mentioned that to you last time where I worked in a pharmacy. I had to learn how to say take 1 teaspoonful 3 times a day in Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't write the word once. Couldn't write the word once on a label for a Spanish patient because that means once. That means 11.
Right.
So 1 time a day, like I had to write it in a way where I didn't use a Spanish word that could be taken out of context. So
Right.
it's just being culturally sensitive. Um,
Right. Also, like really helps, as you said. Yeah.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's pretty much it. Uh, that's all from here. Thank you, Mr. Chillingworth, for being here today.
Thank you, buddy.
Yeah.
It's always a pleasure, honey.
Thank you. And I'll see you next time. Peace.
Let me know if